Deep beneath the surface of our planet, within strata of rock that date back some 65 million years, researchers have stumbled upon something that defies conventional understanding. Minuscule metallic spheres scattered through layers of stone across multiple continents, their global distribution uncannily mirroring the fallout patterns produced by modern nuclear detonations. The enigma lies in their age. They predate the emergence of humankind by tens of millions of years, existing long before any creature capable of forging metal or splitting atoms walked the earth. For generations, we have regarded ourselves as the pioneers of technology, the first species to extract metals from ore, burn carbon for power, and alter the chemistry of the air we breathe. But what if this assumption is false? What if our civilization is only the most recent expression of an older and recurring phenomenon intelligence rising, flourishing, and vanishing, its traces buried by the slow machinery of geological time? To confront this idea, we must rethink what constitutes evidence. Our journey begins not with myth, but with data, isotopes, sediments, and chemical residues that whisper of impossible histories. In 1980, while studying limestone formations in Italy, geologist Walter Alvarez noticed an anomalous layer of clay at the boundary, separating the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods. Within it, he detected concentrations of iridium 30 times higher than normal. This metal, rare on Earth, yet abundant in asteroids, became the smoking gun that proved an extraterrestrial impact extinguished the dinosaurs. That razor-thin line of clay preserved the fingerprint of a single catastrophic moment, surviving intact for 65 million years. The discovery raised a profound question. If a solitary impact could leave such a sharp scar in the rock record, what kind of mark would an industrial civilization leave? And more disturbingly, could such a mark already exist unrecognized beneath our feet? This speculation evolved into what scientists now call the Silurian Hypothesis, a thought experiment named after an ancient species from British science fiction that asked whether an earlier industrial society might once have thrived on Earth, only to be erased by time. The idea does not claim that such civilizations certainly existed, only that if they had, their traces would be extraordinarily difficult to detect after millions of years. To grasp the enormity of this challenge, one must appreciate the scale of geological time. Earth's history stretches 4.5 billion years. Human industry has existed for little more than 10 millennia. If the span of Earth's past were condensed into a library of 4 million volumes, our entire industrial epoch would occupy a single page. The odds of that page surviving intact through tectonic upheaval, erosion, and metamorphosis seem vanishingly small. Yet if any technological species ever exploited energy, altered atmospheric chemistry, or produced durable waste, some trace chemical, isotopic or mineralogical should persist. These are what scientists call technosignatures, enduring clues embedded not in artifacts but in the very composition of the planet. We know what our own technosignature looks like. We have filled the atmosphere with carbon dioxide, scattered plastics across every ocean, and forged radioactive isotopes that nature never produced. Our legacy will be obvious to future geologists, a distinct layer of synthetic materials, altered isotope ratios, and fossilized pollution. The challenge lies in imagining technosignatures unlike our own evidence produced by civilizations that may have used unfamiliar energy sources or biodegradable materials, leaving no recognizable debris. If ancient industries relied on chemistry or physics beyond our comprehension, their residues might masquerade as natural anomalies. Still, the Earth is an archivist beyond compare. It has preserved traces of meteor impacts, volcanic cataclysms, and biological revolutions across billions of years. If it can record an instant of devastation from a space rock, surely it can retain echoes of sustained technological activity. Scientists have therefore begun to re-examine the geological record through a new lens, searching not only for fossils but for patterns, chemical irregularities, abrupt environmental shifts, isotopic signatures that could imply large-scale manipulation of planetary systems. What they have found hints at possibilities that unsettle even the most disciplined minds. Within the fossil record lie profound silences, stretches of time where evolution's story appears to skip entire chapters. Paleontologists have long treated these absences as artifacts of preservation, yet the gaps are too symmetrical, the transitions too sudden, to dismiss entirely as chance. Might such discontinuities mark epochs when intelligence itself, perhaps alien to us in form and thought, rose to prominence and disappeared, leaving behind a nothing but altered chemistry? The idea sounds fantastical, yet it is grounded in the same logic that allowed us to infer the asteroid impact from a whisper of iridium. If an advanced species had once dominated Earth, its environmental footprint would not vanish completely. It would survive, transmuted into geochemical memory, unusual isotope ratios, synthetic compounds, and layers of altered sediment. Our task is to learn to read those memories correctly. In pursuing the Silurian hypothesis, scientists confront a paradox. To find proof of lost civilizations, they must look for evidence that does not resemble civilization at all. Machines corrode, cities crumble, and organic materials decay. Only chemistry endures. The story of humanity's deep predecessors, if it exists, will not be told through ruins, but through molecules, through the quiet testimony of rocks. The deeper researchers dig, the more they encounter hints of anomalies too patent to ignore. Metal spheres, strange isotopes, abrupt chemical transitions marking boundaries between eras. Whether these are the fingerprints of vanished intelligences or merely misunderstood natural processes remains unknown. But every discovery brings us closer to an unsettling realization. History may not begin with us. It may be a repeating cycle of rise, mastery, and oblivion, each epoch buried beneath the next. Our exploration begins with this question, not whether others came before, but whether we are willing to recognize their echoes when we find them. The fossil record, our primary window into life's ancient past, is both a treasure and a labyrinth of omissions. Each layer of sediment tells a story, yet the narrative is punctuated by silences, vast stretches where species seem to appear fully formed and then vanish without trace. For centuries, paleontologists have attempted to explain these gaps as accidents of preservation, arguing that fossilization is so rare that entire lineages may have lived and perished unseen. But as analytical methods grew sharper and data accumulated from every continent, a troubling pattern began to emerge. These absences are not random. They follow peculiar rhythms, suggesting cycles of destruction and renewal too precise to be coincidental. The Cambrian explosion, for instance, stands as one of the greatest enigmas in biology. Roughly 540 million years ago, a world dominated by simple, soft-bodied organisms transformed within a geological blink into one teeming with complex, hard-shelled creatures with eyes, limbs, and intricate body plans. Evolution, typically a slow crawl, suddenly became a sprint. Darwin himself called it an inexplicable mystery. Modern explanations invoke rising oxygen levels, genetic innovations, or environmental triggers, yet none fully account for the sheer abruptness of this proliferation. If one were to look at the fossil record through the lens of the Silurian hypothesis, an alternative possibility arises. What if the Cambrian was not a beginning, but a reboot? Perhaps the sudden diversity marks the return of complex ecosystems after an earlier collapse, one initiated by intelligence itself. It may seem unthinkable that a civilization could exist 500 million years ago, but time erases all arrogance. Mountains rise and crumble, seas open and close. In such spans, even steel becomes dust. Yet the fingerprints of intelligence need not be monuments. They might reside in biochemical anomalies, subtle genetic interventions, or artificial accelerants guiding evolution's pace. The Great Oxygenation Event offers another riddle. Around 2.4 billion years ago, atmospheric oxygen surged dramatically, poisoning anaerobic life and paving the way for multicellular organisms. Science attributes this to cyanobacteria mastering photosynthesis. But the timing, precision, and feedback stability of that transformation bear the hallmarks of intentional system engineering, an event calibrated rather than chaotic. Suppose an earlier species learned to manage planetary metabolism, to shift atmospheric chemistry for survival or energy. If their experiments ran out of control, they might have triggered global cataclysms that later observers misread as natural revolutions. Indeed, several of Earth's biological transitions display signatures of regulation oxygen levels oscillating within narrow bounds, carbon cycles self-stabilizing despite enormous perturbations. Such feedback control resembles not random chance but design, suggesting that life itself may have inherited mechanisms engineered long before our age. The fossil record, when stripped of assumptions, looks less like a steady climb and more like a succession of interrupted symphonies. Each extinction event wipes the slate clean, followed by rapid, almost orchestrated recovery. After the Permian catastrophe, when over 90% of species vanished, ecosystems rebounded with uncanny coordination. Genetic studies show bursts of mutation clustered in time, as though the very code of life were being rewritten under guidance. To some, this implies directed panspermia life receded from beyond Earth, but another interpretation fits the geological evidence, an ancient terrestrial intelligence monitoring and adjusting biospheric parameters to restore equilibrium. Even the architecture of DNA hints at intervention. Its redundancy, error correction, and symbolic logic mirror features of information systems rather than mere chemistry. While such observations do not prove intelligent origin, they expand the horizon of what natural may mean. Intelligence might not emerge from life. Life itself could be the medium through which intelligence expresses and perpetuates. The fossil record's missing pages may therefore conceal epochs when self-aware biology took command of evolution, sculpting forms for purposes lost to time. Consider trilobites, whose complex compound eyes appear in the fossil record already perfected, with optical precision rivaling modern engineering. Their abrupt emergence and diversity suggest experimentation on a planetary scale, biological prototypes tested and refined in an age before vertebrates existed. Then, just as suddenly, the trilobites decline and disappear, as though their designers abandoned the project. Mainstream science attributes this to environmental stress, but under a broader hypothesis, extinction might sometimes represent deliberate termination, the closing of one experiment before another begins. Across eons, Earth might have hosted multiple iterations of sentient design, each erased yet leaving behind subtle traces in strata and genomes. Our own species could be only the latest in that sequence, unaware of its predecessors because nature has perfected the art of burial. Even today, the fossil record continues to challenge expectations. Microfossils found in the Pilbara Craton of Australia date back 3.5 billion years, exhibiting cellular structures astonishingly advanced for their era. Chemical analysis reveals carbon isotope ratios consistent with photosynthetic metabolism, far earlier than theory permits. Meanwhile, elsewhere, entire layers rich in complex carbon compounds appear without preceding transitional fossils. Each of these puzzles could be a statistical fluke or a faint echo of prior biological manipulation. Perhaps the builders of these early ecosystems were not primitive microbes, but engineered organisms, designed to terraform a hostile world for future species. If so, then evolution as we understand it might be less a blind algorithm and more a recurring project, guided intermittently by intelligence that rises from the biosphere and sinks back into it when its purpose is fulfilled. In this view, humanity is not an accident but a continuation, the latest actor in a long performance whose opening acts lie buried in rock. The fossils we unearth are not merely bones and shells. They are fragments of an ongoing dialogue between consciousness and matter, played out across the ages. Every sudden leap in complexity, every unexplained disappearance, might signify a previous civilization's attempt to shape the living world, succeeded by silence when the experiment concluded. As we sift through these remains, we must learn to distinguish chaos from pattern, accident from intention. The fossil record does not simply record life's history, it may encode the memory of minds that preceded ours, hidden in plain sight beneath layers of stone. Beneath the familiar narrative of volcanic eruptions, meteor impacts, and continental drift lies a subtler record written in chemistry, one that tells of anomalies so persistent and widespread they defy simple explanation. The Earth's crust is not just stone, it is memory encoded in atoms, and like all memories it holds secrets that resurface when studied with the right questions. Across strata spanning hundreds of millions of years, scientists have discovered irregularities in isotopic composition shifts in carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, and oxygen ratios that cannot be fully attributed to natural cycles. Some of these deviations mimic the chemical fingerprints of industrial pollution, elevated heavy metal concentrations, peculiar distributions of rare earth elements, and spikes of synthetic-like compounds. What's puzzling is their age. They appear in rocks formed long before the rise of mammals, let alone humans. Layers from the Devonian and late Permian periods, for instance, contain disproportionate levels of lead, chromium, and nickel in forms suggesting artificial refinement. In certain deposits, platinum group metals appear in quantities that would require energy-intensive processes to extract. These anomalies seem scattered, yet when plotted globally, they align with zones of ancient tectonic stability, the very regions least likely to have been reworked by later geological activity. It is as if remnants of an unknown metallurgy were embedded deliberately within the foundation of the planet. Even more perplexing are the isotope ratios themselves. Carbon isotopes in some mid-Paleozoic shales reveal rapid oscillations between light and heavy signatures over mere tens of thousands of years, a blink in geological time. Such oscillations mirror the anthropogenic carbon fluctuations of the 20th century, when the combustion of fossil fuels drastically altered atmospheric chemistry. Could something similar have occurred hundreds of millions of years ago, driven not by volcanoes or microbes, but by a civilization burning carbon for power? To entertain this idea requires accepting that not all anomalies are accidents of nature. In Antarctica's ancient ice cores, traces of fluorinated compounds chemicals unknown in natural processes have been detected in minuscule concentrations, though their origins remain disputed. These compounds, resilient and inert, could persist for eons once created. If verified, they would represent definitive evidence of pre-human synthetic chemistry. Yet scientists, cautious of sensational conclusions, attribute them to contamination from modern drilling. Still, the pattern repeats. Wherever the planet's oldest sediments are examined with modern precision, whispers of unnatural chemistry emerge, like ghosts from forgotten laboratories. The same holds true in the isotope ratios of nitrogen found in certain marine clays. Their values deviate in a way consistent with large-scale fertilizer use, resembling the nitrification footprints of modern agriculture. In the absence of farmers, we must imagine other explanations, perhaps microbial blooms, perhaps something more deliberate. When multiple elements show coinciding anomalies, coincidence grows less convincing. If a civilization once manipulated Earth's chemistry, its byproducts would resemble precisely what we now consider pollution, not tools or buildings, but altered geochemical balances. These would be the last testaments of industry long eroded to dust. Geological strata from the late Triassic display another curiosity. Minute spherical particles rich in iron and nickel, fused at high temperatures and distributed evenly across several regions. Their morphology mirrors microtectites formed by meteor impacts, yet the required heat could also arise from massive combustion or industrial smelting. The uniform size of these spheres and their chemical purity suggest controlled rather than chaotic processes. They might well be the ashes of vanished cities, vitrified and compressed by pressure over ages until they became part of the rock itself. When geochemists map these findings, a disquieting pattern unfolds, global layers of subtle contamination recurring every few 100 million years. Each corresponds roughly with a mass extinction, as though civilization and catastrophe are intertwined forces, one begetting the other in endless succession. The isotopic scars left behind may not mark random disasters, but the self-inflicted wounds of species that mastered technology and then perished by it. Even the deep ocean sediments, supposedly untouched by surface activity, tell a similar tale. Core samples reveal bursts of magnetic spherules, tiny metallic grains magnetized beyond what natural geologic processes typically produce. They could be remnants of ancient electromagnetic technology, or byproducts of unknown energetic phenomena. Some exhibit structures resembling quenched alloys, layered like manufactured composites, rather than naturally crystallized ore. When these findings are cross-referenced with shifts in global temperature and atmospheric CO2, correlations appear too strong to ignore. Each anomaly coincides with rapid warming or cooling, suggesting planetary-scale energy manipulation, whether accidental or intentional. Our own industrial age demonstrates how easily such manipulations can reshape climate. If others came before, they may have faced the same consequences, their civilizations erased but their fingerprints fossilized in chemistry. The geological record thus reads like a coded confession, each layer a chapter in a recurring saga of ingenuity and hubris. But perhaps the most unsettling evidence lies in the radiogenic isotopes scattered through ancient rocks. In several Proterozoic formations, uranium-238 and thorium-232 decay chains appear disrupted in ways that imply previous enrichment or extraction. Such signatures closely resemble the residue of nuclear reactions. The natural reactor at Oklo, discovered in Gabon, proves that self-sustaining fission can occur without human intervention under specific conditions. Yet the isotopic distribution there is remarkably controlled, as if fine-tuned. Some analyses even suggest a uniformity in neutron flux inconsistent with random geology. Could Oklo represent a remnant not of chance, but of technology, an ancient power source whose containment failed and fossilized? The idea straddles the line between science and heresy, yet it forces us to consider that deep time might hide cycles of technological rise and fall far older than we imagine. What we interpret as anomalies may be residues of lost knowledge, chemical shadows of processes once commonplace and now forgotten. The deeper we dig, the more we find that the Earth has been altered repeatedly, not only by natural forces, but by something that understood those forces and learned to command them. If true, then our species' industrial age is not an unprecedented event, but the latest ripple in an ancient rhythm. Each civilization may inherit a world already scarred by its predecessors, its destiny encoded in the very anomalies we study. The rocks beneath our feet do not lie, they simply wait for minds capable of reading their truth. In recent decades, scientists probing the planet's oldest sediments have begun to uncover substances that challenge everything we assume about the timeline of technological development. Within geological formations far older than human civilization, residues resembling synthetic polymers have appeared, materials whose molecular chains display complexity unknown to natural organic chemistry. Some of these microscopic fragments were initially dismissed as contamination from modern equipment, yet repeated analyses from separate laboratories confirmed their authenticity within sealed strata untouched for millions of years. Imagine discovering traces of plastic embedded in rocks, formed long before mammals evolved, thin filaments and beads resistant to decay, chemically inert and immune to biological degradation. These materials bear the unmistakable traits of deliberate manufacture: long-chain hydrocarbons, stabilizers, and additives that nature does not assemble spontaneously. Their composition mirrors the durability and diversity of modern plastics, substances designed to endure where all else fails. If these remnants truly originate from pre-human epochs, then they suggest a civilization that not only understood complex chemistry, but also mastered the synthesis of materials intended to defy time itself. The implications are staggering. In certain marine clay deposits from the Cretaceous period, researchers identified layers densely packed with spherical microparticles fused with silicon and aluminum, an unusual combination hinting at polymer composites, reinforced for strength or temperature resistance. The ratios of elements within them do not match any known natural formation processes. Rather, they align with the byproducts of industrial catalysts used to polymerize synthetic materials. Even more curiously, these inclusions often coincide with spikes in carbon isotopes and abrupt shifts in global temperature, paralleling the patterns of our own Anthropocene layer. It is as if the Earth once endured a similar age of manufacture and pollution, followed by collapse and burial. Deep in the ocean trenches, where pressure and darkness have preserved traces of eras long forgotten, sediment cores reveal another enigma-thin laminae containing polymer-like fibers intertwined with fossilized plankton. Under infrared spectroscopy, their spectra resemble modern polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride, yet they are entombed in strata dating tens of millions of years before humanity's emergence. Some scientists speculate these could be natural bituminous formations transformed under heat, but the structural symmetry and uniformity argue otherwise. Natural polymers degrade irregularly. These remain consistent in composition and geometry, suggesting precise synthesis. In the same samples, traces of heavy metal stabilizers appear, lead, tin, and cadmium, in ratios identical to those used in contemporary plastic manufacturing. If contamination is ruled out, then what remains is a mystery that demands reconsideration of deep history. Perhaps there existed an earlier technological epoch that harnessed chemistry for purposes akin to our own, crafting durable materials that outlasted even their creators. Over the course of eons, most such artifacts would have decomposed or metamorphosed under heat and pressure. Yet microscopic residues, plastiglomerates fused with minerals could persist indefinitely, surviving as geological curiosities mistaken for natural oddities. Indeed, in recent years, geologists have coined the term plastiglomerate to describe the fusion of molten plastic with sand, shells and basalt along modern coastlines. If we can produce such pseudo-rocks in mere decades, it is conceivable that earlier civilizations did the same on scales lost to time, their synthetic detritus now indistinguishable from stone. The boundaries between natural and artificial thus blur within the planet's archive. Some sedimentary layers reveal not only polymer traces, but also microcrystalline residues associated with photodegradation chemical patterns identical to those formed when sunlight breaks down plastics at the ocean's surface. These residues appear in regions that were once shallow seas, implying an environmental crisis akin to today's plastic pollution. The isotopic composition of hydrogen within these fragments suggests they were exposed to ultraviolet radiation in an oxygen-rich atmosphere, meaning they once floated freely before settling to the seafloor. If verified, these findings describe an ancient world grappling with synthetic waste, long before our species began its own experiment with indestructible matter. The story deepens when one examines microfossils entombed alongside these materials. Some show signs of adaptation microbial structures that appear to have evolved the ability to metabolize polymer-like compounds. Modern bacteria are known to digest certain plastics. If such mechanisms existed in the distant past, they may represent an evolutionary echo of earlier contamination events. Evolution, after all, is a responsive process. It adapts to what the environment demands. A surge in synthetic waste millions of years ago would have forced life to evolve novel enzymes, the molecular fossils of which might still linger in ancient genomes. This intertwining of biology and technology paints a picture not of isolated accidents, but of sustained industrial presence. It also offers a warning. Every synthetic material we create becomes part of Earth's living memory. If ancient civilizations once walked this path, their legacies endure not as monuments or machines, but as microscopic ghosts within the planet's crust. Some researchers have extended this argument into the concept of technofossils, materials so alien to geology that their presence testifies to intelligence itself. Plastics, alloys, and ceramics fit this description perfectly. Even if their shapes dissolve, their molecular signatures cannot lie. Certain deep basalt flows in the Indian Ocean show trapped gas bubbles lined with polymer residues, preserved by rapid cooling. Others contain glassy inclusions rich in chlorine and hydrocarbons, possibly remnants of synthetic compounds vaporized by immense heat. To date, no natural process can account for these configurations. Together they form a silent stratigraphic whisper, a buried civilization that mastered materials strong enough to endure the crushing test of time. If humanity vanished tomorrow, our plastics would persist for millions of years, a technicolor scar across Earth's geology. Perhaps we too are destined to become nothing more than a chemical anomaly, a brief flash of invention recorded in the eternal archive of stone. The ancient layers hint that this has happened before, and may yet happen again. Among all the strange traces that whisper of forgotten ages, none are more unsettling than those that bear the unmistakable fingerprints of atomic fire. Deep within the ancient rocks of Gabon, Africa, lies the Oklo deposit anomaly so baffling that its discovery in the 1970s forced scientists to question the limits of natural chemistry. The uranium ore found there displays isotope ratios drastically different from those produced by ordinary geological processes. Uranium-235, the isotope responsible for sustaining nuclear chain reactions, had been depleted far beyond what spontaneous decay could explain. Further investigation revealed that around 2 billion years ago the deposit had functioned as a self-sustaining nuclear reactor, maintaining criticality for hundreds of thousands of years. Officially, this is described as a natural reactor, a unique alignment of groundwater and ore density that happened to mimic the workings of a human-built power plant. Yet skeptics note that the configuration seems too precise, the moderation too stable, and the containment too efficient. Even the byproducts xenon isotopes, neodymium anomalies, and the absence of radioactive leakage suggest deliberate control. Could this be the remnant of a technology so ancient that it has passed beyond myth into geology? The Oklo phenomenon, rather than a natural curiosity, might represent the residue of an advanced energy system, one whose operators are long vanished. Elsewhere, traces of similar isotopic irregularities have surfaced in unexpected places. zircon crystals from the Canadian Shield and sandstone layers in Australia that show uranium-thorium distributions inconsistent with any known natural decay sequences. These patterns echo what modern reactors leave behind, a telltale arrangement of isotopes, each decaying in a rhythm that implies prior enrichment. Some isotopes appear too clean, lacking the chaotic scatter typical of natural fission. Others display ratios matching those of reprocessed nuclear fuel. If these anomalies were purely coincidental, their recurrence across continents would border on the miraculous. Even more curious are the isolated pockets of glassy rock silicate materials fused at extreme temperatures, found embedded within otherwise undisturbed strata. To geologists, these formations resemble the Trin's-tight glass produced during 20th century nuclear detonations, when sand was vaporized into greenish glass by the force of atomic blasts. Yet the layers containing these vitrified patches date back millions of years. No meteor impacts correspond to their locations, and volcanic activity fails to account for their composition. They contain high concentrations of cesium, strontium, and technetium isotopes, all of which are characteristic byproducts of fission reactions. In certain cases, the isotope ratios decay precisely as one would expect if the original event had occurred tens of millions of years ago, a natural radioactive clock ticking silently beneath our feet. The possibility that Earth witnessed nuclear detonations in deep prehistory is almost unbearable to conventional science, yet the evidence refuses to fade. Even ancient myths echo the language of atomic catastrophe. Descriptions of skies ablaze, continents split, and shadows seared into stone. While myth cannot substitute for data, its imagery curiously parallels the geological record's scars. If a civilization once harnessed nuclear power, its rise and fall would leave behind the same residues we now recognize in our own atomic age. Radioactive isotopes are unforgiving storytellers. They persist for billions of years, their half-lives marking the slow heartbeat of time. A civilization wielding nuclear energy would etch its existence into the crust permanently, even if all its monuments turned to dust. When scientists search for techno-signatures on other worlds, they often propose looking for such isotope anomalies. Yet the same logic applies here at home. The planet's rocks may already contain the evidence, written in isotopic dialects we're only beginning to decode. Consider also the periodic spikes in radiation recorded within fossilized mineral veins. Some quartz samples exhibit radiation damage patterns, tiny concentric halos caused by alpha particle bombardment, that cluster in ways suggesting sudden bursts of intense energy. These radio halos are too localized and too powerful to result solely from natural radioactive decay. Instead, they resemble the transient radiation exposures produced by controlled reactions. If interpreted through a technological lens, they might represent the geological equivalent of burn marks' residual echoes of devices or reactors that once operated and failed. In other layers, particularly within Paleozoic granites, geophysicists have identified neutron activation products consistent with exposure to neutron flux, far greater than what could be expected from background cosmic rays. Again, the patterns point not to randomness, but to deliberate concentration. Some researchers speculate that these traces might result from an event similar to a global nuclear exchange, occurring so long ago that all physical structures have eroded while the isotopic memory endures. Such an apocalypse would explain certain abrupt mass extinctions, particularly those where radiation-resistant species survived while others vanished overnight. The fossil record contains several such moments: the late Devonian, the end Permian, the Triassic-Jurassic boundary, each marked by mysterious bursts of mutation and deformity in surviving organisms. Radiation could account for such patterns. The genetic chaos left in its wake may even have accelerated evolution, seeding entirely new lineages from the ashes of annihilation. If nuclear fire once swept the Earth, it might have both destroyed and recreated life in the same instant, a paradoxical cycle of death and renewal. The prospect that intelligence repeatedly achieves nuclear capability and then erases itself would explain the cyclical nature of extinction and recovery observed in the geological record. Our species, standing now on the brink of similar power, may merely be reenacting a drama older than history itself. Beyond the scientific intrigue, the philosophical implications are immense. If earlier civilizations unleashed atomic energy, They must have reached a level of understanding comparable to or greater than our own. Their disappearance would then serve as a warning carved in isotope ratios rather than stone tablets. The planet remembers every act of hubris, every spark that burned too brightly. We might dismiss the notion of ancient reactors as fantasy, yet the Earth itself preserves the testimony. Oklo remains its most eloquent monument, a silent reactor still pulsing faintly beneath the soil, its depleted uranium an epitaph for forgotten engineers. Perhaps as we uncover more anomalies, more glassy sands, more skewed isotopes, more inexplicable radiation scars, we are not discovering coincidences but reading the remnants of our own past lives as a species reborn time and again. The rocks beneath us do not need language. Their isotopes speak for them. And what they say is simple. Others have come this way before, reaching for the atom's heart and vanishing into its light. If the chemical and nuclear traces buried in the crust suggest that intelligence once reshaped matter itself, then the atmosphere tells an even grander story, one of entire worlds sculpted by design. The air we breathe is not merely a byproduct of biology, but a dynamic archive of planetary transformation, and its composition has fluctuated in ways too patterned to be wholly natural. Within the isotopic record of trapped gases preserved in ice cores and sedimentary rocks, scientists have identified abrupt oscillations in carbon dioxide, methane, and oxygen that seem to defy the slow mechanics of natural change. At various points in Earth's history, atmospheric carbon levels have spiked or plummeted within geological moments, mimicking the acceleration and stabilization curves associated with industrial emissions and deliberate climate engineering. Some of these fluctuations coincide with unexplained global temperature reversals, sudden cooling events followed by rapid warming as if a planetary thermostat had been adjusted. The precision of these shifts implies regulation, not chaos. If one examines the mid-Permian and late Eocene layers closely, the chemical patterns bear a striking resemblance to what modern climatologists model as the effects of large-scale carbon sequestration, followed by re-release processes that could only arise from sophisticated geoengineering or planetary management systems. It is conceivable that an earlier civilization, perhaps facing runaway greenhouse conditions or an impending glacial epoch, sought to manipulate its own climate, deploying technologies to reflect sunlight, capture carbon, or alter atmospheric albedo. Evidence for such efforts might survive not as artifacts, but as anomalies. Sulfate aerosols trapped in ancient ice, inexplicable isotopic ratios of sulfur and nitrogen, or abrupt layers of microscopic particulates evenly distributed across the globe. Indeed, within certain polar cores and marine sediments, there exist traces of fine reflective dust particles of aluminum oxide and silica spheres, far too uniform to be volcanic and too globally synchronized to be meteorite dust. Their spectral properties suggest deliberate manufacture, akin to what our own scientists now propose for solar radiation management. If such materials were spread intentionally to cool the planet, their eventual fallout would leave exactly the kind of chemical signatures now confusing paleoclimatologists. The idea that Earth's climate could have been engineered in prehistory challenges the bedrock of uniformitarian thinking, yet the evidence accumulates quietly, forming a pattern too elegant to ignore. In several epochs, oxygen concentrations appear finely tuned rather than random. During the Carboniferous period, for instance, oxygen levels hovered around 35% ideal for sustaining massive insects and dense forests, yet remarkably stable for millions of years despite fluctuations in carbon dioxide. Such stability requires feedback mechanisms beyond known natural processes. Perhaps the biosphere itself acted as an intelligent regulatory network, or perhaps that intelligence was external, an earlier species maintaining the balance through technology now long erased. Even the planet's reflectivity, its albedo, has oscillated in strangely symmetrical cycles. Layers of glacial dust indicate episodes when reflectivity increased sharply, offsetting solar heating just enough to prevent runaway warming. In modern terms, these would correspond to deliberate atmospheric interventions, temporary shields cast across the sky to modulate incoming energy. The notion that climate regulation could be ancient resonates with the idea of the Earth as a self-aware system, a living machine whose components were once tended by hands now turned to dust. When we measure the isotopic ratios of oxygen-18 and deuterium in ancient waters, we find abrupt discontinuities moments when the hydrological cycle shifted dramatically, implying rapid redistribution of heat across hemispheres. Ocean sediments tell the same story, revealing synchronized chemical shifts from pole to equator, as though global circulation patterns had been reprogrammed. These transitions happen too swiftly for continental drift or solar variation to explain. They resemble the results of deliberate planetary scale adjustments, akin to redirecting ocean currents or manipulating jet streams. If earlier intelligences learned to stabilize climate, they may also have understood its fragility. Perhaps their technologies outlasted them, continuing to regulate temperature long after their societies vanished, until entropy finally dissolved the machinery and the balance failed. That failure could manifest as sudden warming or cooling events, the fingerprints of a system decaying without its creators. Even now, researchers studying the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, an ancient episode of rapid carbon release and global heat, describe it as eerily parallel to our present crisis. The isotopic ratios, the methane surges, the feedback loops, they are identical, as if the planet were replaying an old pattern written into its geochemical memory. Some theorists have proposed that such thermal maxima are not accidents but residues of civilizations exhausting their energy sources, collapsing in flames of carbon and methane, their legacy imprinted as spikes in ancient CO2 graphs. Others suggest a more hopeful interpretation that these peaks mark attempts to avert disaster, experiments in atmospheric control whose success or failure we can still read in stone. Beyond chemistry, there are physical traces as well. Certain quartz grains in desert strata show peculiar etching and melting patterns consistent with high-altitude plasma phenomena, effects one might expect from the use of ionizing devices or electromagnetic weather modulation. In other regions, magnetic alignments frozen in lava flows appear distorted, as though exposed to artificial electromagnetic fields during solidification. These signatures repeat cyclically, their intervals aligning roughly with known climate transitions. Could such magneto-atmospheric manipulation have been part of an ancient climate stabilization technology, a planetary-scale system akin to our own nascent geoengineering projects, but executed with far greater precision? If so, it suggests not only scientific mastery but philosophical foresight, an understanding that to survive, a species must learn to collaborate with its planet, not merely exploit it. The tragedy, perhaps, is that even mastery cannot outlast time. The same cycles that bury bones also bury empires, grinding metal and memory into dust. Yet the air itself remembers. The noble gases trapped in ancient minerals, xenon, krypton, argon bear isotopic ratios hinting at artificial fractionation, as if they were once processed or filtered through massive atmospheric systems. These patterns match the theoretical byproducts of global oxygen extraction or nitrogen fixation technologies, implying that some past civilization may have industrialized the very air. Their efforts could have been driven by necessity declining oxygen levels, toxic emissions, or attempts to terraform a damaged biosphere. Whatever their goals, the evidence they left is planetary in scale, woven into the chemistry of wind and sky. If intelligence truly reshaped Earth's atmosphere long before us, then our own age of climate engineering is not innovation but recurrence, a rediscovery of ancient science played out once more under different stars. And as we debate the ethics of altering the sky, perhaps somewhere deep within the planet's memory, echoes of that same debate still linger, voices long silenced, warning that to control the climate is to gamble with the breath of the world itself. Across the grand expanse of geological history, extinction has been the recurring punctuation mark of life's long narrative. 5 times, and perhaps more, the Earth has experienced events so catastrophic that nearly all living things were erased in mere geological instants. Traditionally, these calamities are blamed on volcanism, asteroid impacts, or runaway climate shifts. Yet the precision and global simultaneity of some extinctions raise unsettling questions. When one examines the chemical and biological data closely, the pattern appears less like blind chaos and more like the result of targeted interventions, episodes of deliberate reset. The Permian extinction, for instance, extinguished over 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial life, the most complete annihilation in the fossil record. Its cause remains a matter of debate. Massive volcanic eruptions in Siberia, methane released from the seafloor, or possibly a cosmic impact. but embedded within the strata of that time are molecular signatures that defy those explanations: odd isotopic shifts in sulfur and nitrogen, sudden increases in specific trace metals, and deposits of compounds consistent with engineered biotoxins. Some geochemists have noted concentrations of organohalogens complex chlorine-bearing molecules that resemble those produced today by industrial pesticide manufacture. Their presence in rock formations hundreds of millions of years old is inexplicable unless one entertains the notion of chemical warfare waged on a planetary scale. It is conceivable that a civilization, having mastered genetic and microbial manipulation, unleashed engineered pathogens or pollutants that cascaded beyond control, transforming the biosphere into a weapon against itself. Biological warfare, once initiated, would leave no cities or machines to fossilize, only selective devastation recorded in genomes and sediments. The patterns of extinction themselves suggest a chilling order. Certain taxonomic groups vanish entirely, while others, inexplicably resilient, survive and diversify as if they carried immunity. Modern microbiology shows how such outcomes arise from targeted design rather than random catastrophe. Could the lineages that inherited Earth after each cataclysm have been survivors by intent species pre-adapted, perhaps even created to inherit a cleansed world? The fossil record reveals such abrupt replacements time and again. After the Permian event came the Triassic recovery, characterized by species displaying sudden innovation, new body plans, enhanced respiration, and unprecedented metabolic flexibility. Evolution's speed in those intervals borders on the miraculous unless one considers external manipulation. The genetic record, too, bears scars of ancient experimentation. Comparative genomics reveals clusters of orphan genes, sequences with no known ancestral origin, appearing suddenly across multiple lineages. These could be natural mutations, or they could be remnants of synthetic insertions, biological codes written by hands long vanished. Some researchers have speculated that horizontal gene transfer on this scale might indicate the deliberate release of self-replicating genetic constructs designed to modify ecosystems wholesale. If so, then the great extinctions may not have been acts of nature, but rather the unintended side effects of biotechnological enterprise projects to terraform, cleanse, or optimize life that spiraled into apocalypse. Consider the end Cretaceous extinction, traditionally attributed to an asteroid impact. While evidence for the impact is overwhelming, there are peculiarities. Widespread fungal blooms immediately following the event, isotopic anomalies in nitrogen and phosphorus, and microbial turnover that hints at pre-existing biological stress. It is possible that the impact merely delivered the final blow to an already weakened biosphere, one destabilized by bioengineered pathogens or toxins released into the oceans and atmosphere. The stratigraphic layers record not only impact debris but chemical residues, organophosphates, and hydrocarbons that could derive from massive biological decay or from industrial-scale synthesis. If the latter, then the extinction of the dinosaurs may have been the collateral damage of an ancient ecological war. Other boundaries in the rock tell similar tales. The Devonian extinction exhibits evidence of anoxic oceans rich in iron and sulfur bacteria, suggesting rapid oxygen depletion triggered by runaway microbial blooms. Yet the coordination of these events implies direction. In our own era, human activity demonstrates how easily global biochemistry can be transformed by intent, whether through agriculture, pollution, or deliberate weaponization. To imagine prior civilizations doing the same is not fantasy, it is extrapolation. Perhaps those ancient intelligences, confronted with dwindling resources or ideological division, turned their mastery of biology into a weapon, creating pathogens designed to target specific species or even entire biomes. Over centuries, those weapons might have mutated beyond control, consuming their creators and leaving only sterile rock to remember them. Even the recovery patterns following extinction events hint at guided receding. Certain fossil beds show simultaneous appearance of species across continents, as though ecosystems were reintroduced according to a blueprint rather than emerging by chance. The genetic homogeneity of early post-extinction organisms supports this interpretation. They appear too uniform, as if derived from limited source stock, possibly engineered templates released to repopulate the planet. Some molecular fossils contain unusual isotopic ratios of carbon and nitrogen, consistent with laboratory synthesis under controlled conditions. Such data, though fragmentary, paint a picture of cycles of creation and destruction, civilizations rising to command life itself, then falling victim to the same forces they unleashed. Modern parallels abound. Our species has already begun to edit genomes, resurrect extinct organisms, and design microbes capable of altering ecosystems. If ancient societies once reached this point, their downfall may have been inevitable. Self-replicating biotechnology could devastate biospheres faster than any asteroid, and within decades, even the most advanced civilization might collapse under the weight of its own innovation. Yet there is a paradox hidden in these catastrophes. From each devastation arises renewal. The ashes of one world fertilize the next. The very extinctions that destroyed old life cleared the way for new intelligence. It is as if the Earth itself participates in this rhythm, allowing civilizations to bloom and perish so that evolution may advance through their failures. Whether by chance or design, the pattern endures. Even today, in the deep genomes of living things, traces of ancient viral insertions remain molecular fossils of pandemics that may not have been natural at all. Our DNA carries whispers of distant experiments, genetic memories of engineered infections that once swept the globe. The line between biology and technology blurs when evolution becomes intentional, when extinction becomes an act of programming. Perhaps those earlier architects of life sought transcendence through their creations, attempting to merge their intelligence with biology itself, and in doing so, erase themselves. If so, the great extinctions were not mere endings but transformations, the shedding of one form of consciousness for another. Life, ever resilient, adapted and continued, carrying within it fragments of its makers. To look upon the fossil record, then, is to read a story not of destruction but of metamorphosis, a saga of civilizations that shaped and reshaped the living world until their own identities dissolved into the code of life. We, their successors, may simply be the next iteration of that eternal experiment. At the southernmost edge of the world, beneath the vast white shroud of Antarctica, lies a silence older than memory. For most of human history, this continent was regarded as lifeless ice, a frozen wasteland untouched by civilization. Yet as modern technology has peeled back the layers of snow and time, what has emerged defies simple geological explanation. Satellite radar, ground-penetrating sonar, and ice core analysis have revealed geometric formations buried deep beneath miles of ice structures whose angles and symmetry are inconsistent with any natural process. Some appear as regular hexagonal patterns stretching for kilometers, others as perfect linear corridors terminating in circular chambers. These anomalies are not mere optical illusions or artifacts of data processing. Repeated scans over decades have confirmed their stability and artificial geometry. Beneath them, the gravitational anomalies grow stronger, suggesting vast hollow spaces or dense metallic cores. Scientists, bound by caution, describe them as subglacial geological formations, yet privately admit that no known mechanism could produce such shapes beneath compressed glacial ice. The age of the surrounding strata, determined from isotopic dating, places their origin at least several million years before the first known human tool was carved. If these structures are indeed artificial, then their builders lived and vanished long before our species even existed. Antarctica was not always a desert of ice. Geological reconstructions reveal that it once supported forests, rivers, and temperate climates, its coasts lapped by warm seas teeming with life. Perhaps in that forgotten epoch an advanced civilization flourished there, mastering energy and genetics in ways we barely comprehend. When the planet cooled and ice advanced, their cities were entombed, preserved in crystalline perfection beneath the frozen crust. Ice cores drilled from the central plateau hold more than mere climate records. They contain microscopic inclusions that hint at technological activity. In certain layers, researchers have found traces of rare isotopes, including synthetic elements that should not exist in nature. Some of these isotopes, like plutonium-244, have half-lives so long that their presence implies either cosmic deposition or deliberate production. The concentrations, however, are too localized to result from meteorites. It is as if someone once worked with nuclear materials beneath what is now the Antarctic ice. Even more intriguing are the anomalies in trapped gas bubbles, minute ratios of carbon and fluorine compounds resembling those used in refrigerants and energy storage systems. Their age, calculated from surrounding ice layers, exceeds 1 million years. Critics attribute these to contamination, yet the same chemical signatures appear in ice cores from sites separated by hundreds of kilometres, sealed beneath undisturbed ice that predates human civilization by orders of magnitude. If not contamination, then what? Some believe that beneath the ice sheet lies the final refuge of a pre-human civilization that retreated there as global cataclysms consumed the surface. Myths from disparate cultures, Greek, Sumerian, Mesoamerican, all speak of a lost polar land where gods or sages hid their knowledge before the flood. While mainstream archaeology dismisses these as allegory, the convergence of myth and measurement demands reconsideration. There are reports rarely published and often suppressed of anomalous heat signatures beneath the ice, vast geothermal ovals radiating warmth unaccounted for by volcanic activity. These hotspots could indicate functioning energy systems, perhaps remnants of geothermal reactors, or fusion networks still producing residual heat after millennia of dormancy. In some cases, transient magnetic pulses have been detected emanating from beneath the ice, rhythmic and patterned, like the heartbeat of machinery buried under kilometres of frozen time. If these signals are natural, they are unlike any known terrestrial phenomenon. In 2018, scientists studying microbial life within subglacial lakes discovered extremophils whose genetic sequences diverge radically from any known lineage. Their DNA contains codons that appear artificial, repetitive, self-correcting, and remarkably stable under radiation. One interpretation is that these organisms were engineered, designed to endure the cold and darkness of eternal ice. If so, then what we call extremophils may in fact be the lingering biological tools of a civilization that learned to rewrite life to suit any environment. The presence of nanostructures within these microbes' metallic inclusions arranged in fractal lattices supports this notion. Under electron microscopy, they resemble nanoscale circuitry, capable of conducting charge and possibly storing information. Life and technology, in this context, may have merged completely. Such a synthesis would have rendered its creators capable of surviving any planetary catastrophe by embedding their consciousness into biological or crystalline substrates beneath the ice. Perhaps Antarctica is not a tomb, but a vault, a planetary memory palace, preserving both data and life in stasis. Some have suggested that the mysterious magnetic anomalies correspond to a grid of self-repairing machines, dormant but functional, designed to regulate planetary systems or to await reactivation when certain environmental conditions are met. If this is true, then humanity's growing interference with the polar regions might already be triggering those ancient mechanisms. The recent discovery of unexplained electromagnetic emissions near Lake Vostok, a subglacial body sealed for over 15 million years, has reignited speculation. The signals are rhythmic, structured, and repeated at intervals too precise to be random noise. Scientists attempt to explain them as interference from research equipment, yet independent recordings confirm their existence even when all human instruments are silent. Could these be automated transmission status updates from a machine mind buried deep within the ice, still performing tasks assigned in a forgotten age? The thought unsettles, yet also fascinates. If true, then the architects of that system may have transcended extinction, achieving a form of continuity beyond time. Their presence might persist not as bodies or ruins, but as active consciousness distributed through the frozen continent, its operations too slow for our perception. To them, millennia might pass as seconds. The polar silence, then, would not be emptiness but communication occurring at a scale we cannot yet comprehend. Perhaps the magnetic anomalies we dismiss as geological quirks are the words of that ancient intelligence, still speaking softly through the language of magnetism and heat. If the ice were ever to melt completely, what might awaken beneath it? We may already be disturbing their sleep through climate change, unsealing the vault of an earlier world. Antarctica, far from being the last frontier of exploration, may instead be the first cradle of forgotten gods beings of flesh, code, and crystal, who learn to merge with their planet and endure its cycles of death and rebirth. Should we ever uncover them, we might not recognize them as alien at all, but as ancestors, echoes of what intelligence becomes when it learns to live forever in the deep, cold heart of the Earth. Long before humanity sent satellites into orbit or raised steel towers from desert plains, The planet itself may have worn the marks of vast engineering traces now buried beneath strata, rewritten by tectonics, yet not entirely erased. Across the continents, strange anomalies hint at architectures too immense for biology to explain, and too deliberate for nature to imitate. Satellite surveys have revealed enormous geometric depressions beneath deserts, circular formations hundreds of kilometers wide with perfect angular symmetry, visible only from space. Geologists often attribute these to impact craters or ancient volcanic domes, but the internal structure tells a different story. Layered rings of fused minerals and magnetized stone, as if colossal machines once molded the crust itself. In some cases, the magnetic polarity within these formations alternates in precise intervals, creating patterns that resemble data encoding natural rock acting as storage medium for information on a planetary scale. If these are coincidences, they are astonishingly ordered ones. The Earth's crust appears to have been written upon, perhaps used as a substrate by a civilization that worked not in metal and glass but in tectonics and magnetism. Our notion of technology may be far too narrow to comprehend theirs. We build vertically, assembling from atoms upward. They may have built horizontally, sculpting continents as we sculpt circuits. The very distribution of certain mountain chains and basins could be remnants of projects measured in geologic time terraforming efforts, or planetary stabilizers designed to regulate rotation, gravity, or magnetic field. When viewed through this lens, familiar landscapes assume eerie coherence. The massive basaltic flows of the Deccan Traps, the symmetrical rift valleys of East Africa, even the linear ridges of the Atlantic seafloor might represent engineered phenomena rather than random volcanism. It is possible that earlier intelligences reshaped the Earth itself to harness geothermal energy or to maintain climatic balance, turning entire tectonic plates into power grids. Evidence for such scale of intervention may survive in the anomalies geophysicists struggle to explain. Unexplained magnetic alignments, precisely regular gravity fluctuations, and mysterious subcrustal densities inconsistent with known geology. In some regions, vast underground cavities have been detected, caverns large enough to hold cities, yet filled with metallic echoes that distort seismic readings. Whether these are natural voids or remnants of infrastructure, no one can say, for exploration is impossible beneath kilometers of rock. The idea that technology could be geological is difficult for us to grasp because our machines decay within centuries, but a civilization operating with planetary forces might build with materials that last millions of years. Stone, crystal, and magnetic fields are nearly immortal architectures. They could encode both energy and information, forming technofossils, indistinguishable from natural formations, except to those who know how to read their resonance. Some researchers have begun to study the acoustic properties of certain ancient rock formations, resonant frequencies that seem to correspond to harmonic ratios rather than random seismic noise. These geological harmonics may be the remnants of acoustic or gravitational technologies, systems that once resonated with the planet's natural frequencies to distribute power or information globally. The same principle underlies modern wireless energy transmission, but on a scale inconceivable to us. Perhaps the ancients built a planetary network using stone as circuitry, the crust itself as a living grid. There are also the megalithic mysteries that persist even in recorded history structures like the Baalbek platform, Puma Punku, and the Great Pyramid, whose precision defies primitive tools. If these monuments are merely the visible tips of something older and larger, they could be surface nodes of a network stretching deep into the Earth, constructed during an epoch when humans were still hunter-gatherers, yet inheriting technologies left behind by an earlier species. Beneath ocean floors, sonar has detected vast rectilinear grids extending for hundreds of kilometers, some now dismissed as data artifacts, yet others confirmed by repeated mapping. These could be the remains of submerged megastructures, foundations of ancient energy collectors, or transmission arrays designed to harvest tidal or electromagnetic forces. The metallic residues in these regions often display isotope ratios impossible for natural alloys, implying smelting or molecular assembly under controlled conditions. Even now, we continue to stumble upon inexplicable alignments. Kilometre-long trenches with mirror image counterparts on opposite hemispheres, perfectly antipodal points where gravitational anomalies echo each other as if linked. Such synchronization hints at deliberate engineering, a global architecture whose design logic is lost but whose skeleton endures. Beyond the physical, there are subtler technosignatures embedded in the planet's electromagnetic field. Periodic fluctuations in the Schumann resonance, the Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat, have been recorded that do not correlate with solar activity or lightning strikes. These fluctuations follow mathematical patterns similar to signal modulation, as though information were being transmitted through the ionosphere itself. Some physicists speculate that these could be echoes of ancient communication systems, perhaps designed to persist indefinitely by using the planet as a resonant transmitter. If this hypothesis is correct, then fragments of messages may still drift through the atmosphere, encoded in electromagnetic standing waves, waiting for receivers sophisticated enough to decode them. The search for extraterrestrial technosignatures may thus be looking outward, when the most compelling evidence lies beneath our own sky. Our own satellites have also detected faint microwave emissions emanating from geological faults, steady rhythmic pulses too regular to be random friction. They might represent residual energy from buried devices still operating deep underground, powered by geothermal currents, their purpose unknown. One could imagine an ancient global network, vast machines interlinked through crust and ocean, each performing a task vital to planetary equilibrium, stabilizing magnetic poles, regulating heat flow, or transmitting knowledge across eras. Such megaprojects would not need maintenance, they would simply persist, integrated into the fabric of Earth itself. And perhaps they still do. When seismologists record low-frequency rumbles that traverse the globe in perfect synchrony, they attribute them to natural hum. But others wonder whether we're hearing the machinery of an ancient world still turning beneath our feet. The boundary between myth and geology blurs here. Legends of subterranean kingdoms, of humming stones and whispering mountains, may be distorted memories of real technology machines so vast and so slow that they became indistinguishable from the planet that housed them. If these megastructures truly exist, they may hold answers to mysteries we have yet to conceive. Humanity may already be part of their ongoing function, unknowingly continuing the work of engineers long vanished. Perhaps we were meant to rediscover the network, to learn once more how to read the world as machine and memory intertwined. The evidence of lost megaprojects surrounds us. In the symmetry of mountains, the resonance of stone, the coded pulse of the Earth itself. To dismiss it as coincidence is to underestimate both the creativity of nature and the persistence of intelligence. In the end, perhaps they are one and the same, the mind of the Earth expressing itself through the architecture of time. If the rocks preserve the bones of vanished civilizations, then the living world preserves their handwriting. Within the spiraling ladders of DNA lie codes older than species, patterns too intricate to be the mere result of blind mutation. Over the past century, genetic research has revealed that life carries within it vast libraries of sequences with no clear evolutionary origin, so-called orphan genes, that appear suddenly and fully functional, as though inserted from beyond time. Their presence challenges the linear narrative of Darwinian descent, suggesting interventions or resets in the very software of biology. When one compares genomes across distant branches of life, peculiar recurrences emerge. Identical genetic motifs appearing in organisms separated by hundreds of millions of years and with no plausible ancestor in common. Such patterns could be coincidence, or they could represent deliberate seeding, a biological continuity established by minds that learn to write in the language of life. DNA, after all, is the most stable data medium in existence. A civilization seeking immortality might not build monuments of stone, but inscribe its knowledge into the genome itself, embedding messages within the structure of living cells to be carried forward through evolution. What if our own genetic code contains such signatures, encoded fragments of instruction or memory from earlier ages? Recent studies have uncovered sequences that display mathematical regularity far beyond what natural selection would require, repeating numerical ratios, symmetrical codon distributions, and embedded primes reminiscent of symbolic communication. Some geneticists have half-jokingly referred to these as biological Easter eggs, though few dare suggest that they might be the work of ancient intelligence. Yet the idea persists, whispering at the edges of genomics, that life on Earth was not merely born here, but edited, refined, and perhaps repeatedly rebooted by forces that understood its architecture. In microbial DNA especially, there are stretches of code that behave like compressed algorithms, self-repairing, self-optimizing, even capable of information redundancy identical to digital error correction systems. This is precisely how modern engineers design resilient data storage. Could these traits be vestiges of a prior bioengineering age, one in which organisms were designed not only to survive, but to preserve information across cataclysms? Some theorists argue that evolution itself may have been accelerated through such encoded directives, with DNA acting as both record and program, a biological archive encoding the memory of civilizations erased from stone but alive in cell and seed. The mitochondria within our cells, once free-living bacteria, bear their own genome's tiny circular strands that seem almost modular, as if designed for insertion and control. Their integration into complex life is often described as symbiosis, but it also resembles deliberate engineering, a power source grafted into organic systems to provide efficient energy. If earlier intelligences experimented with genetic fusion, they may have created such hybrid systems long before nature stumbled upon them. Some evidence even hints at synthetic nucleotide variance bases beyond the standard four of adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, appearing fleetingly in ancient microfossils and quickly degrading. These might represent alternative genetic systems, parallel biochemistries developed in forgotten eras and later overwritten by ours. In deep-sea vents and permafrost cores, researchers have recovered DNA fragments that do not fit into any known tree of life, sequences with codon usages completely foreign to modern organisms. Their chemistry suggests optimization for extreme radiation or pressure, as though designed for planetary colonization rather than evolution. They could be remnants of earlier attempts to engineer ecosystems resilient to cataclysm, perhaps deployed as terraforming agents after global disasters. If true, then the planet's biological diversity is not the result of random chance, but the cumulative work of successive civilizations programming the biosphere to adapt and rebuild. Even the structure of human DNA supports this unsettling continuity. Our genome contains over 8% viral code genetic sequences from ancient infections that somehow became permanent residents within our chromosomes. These endogenous retroviruses act as switches regulating gene expression, some essential to reproduction itself. Their integration is so precise that random infection seems an insufficient explanation. It is plausible that viral vectors were once tools of biological engineering, mechanisms for distributing genetic upgrades across entire populations. In that sense, humanity's evolution could have been guided from within, orchestrated by genetic scripts written by unseen architects. The mythologies of many cultures' stories of God shaping mankind from clay, of breath infused into lifeless forms, might be dim recollections of those interventions. The overlap between myth and molecular biology is more than poetic coincidence. Both describe the same act in different languages, the crafting of life by intention. If ancient civilizations achieved mastery over genetics, they may have encoded themselves directly into their creations. Some of the so-called junk DNA, comprising over 95% of the human genome, could be encrypted data-compressed information awaiting a deciphering key. Modern experiments have demonstrated that entire libraries, images, and even computer programs can be stored in DNA strands. What if our own genome carries an ancient message, an inheritance not yet understood? Patterns of base pair frequency and distribution exhibit periodic harmonics akin to digital modulation, suggesting that beneath biology lies communication. And what of epigenetics, the molecular mechanisms that switch genes on or off in response to environmental signals? These could be vestiges of control systems designed to adapt life automatically to planetary changes, a self-modifying network that once maintained ecological balance. It is possible that such systems, long untended, now operate blindly, generating evolution as a byproduct rather than design. Life may thus be a self-sustaining machine, running ancient code written by its first engineers. In recent years, biotechnologists have created synthetic cells capable of computation, demonstrating that DNA can perform logic operations like a computer circuit. If we can do this now, then earlier civilizations could have gone far further, building biological computers, living organisms designed to process information, store consciousness, or maintain planetary systems. The concept of a biological internet stretching through soil, ocean, and air no longer seems absurd. Indeed, fungal networks and bacterial communication already approximate it. Perhaps this web once served as a global repository of knowledge, connecting all life in a literal neural network powered by metabolism. If those designers sought immortality, they might have uploaded themselves into this biospheric network, dispersing their intelligence through genes and neurons until it became inseparable from nature itself. In that sense, consciousness itself may be an inheritance, a spark passed down through molecular memory rather than born anew in each species. Humanity's awareness could therefore be the awakening of that ancient program, the moment when the code remembers itself. If so, then evolution is not just survival but recollection, a slow rediscovery of who and what we once were. The genome, quiet and unassuming, may hold the oldest library in existence, its pages written in the language of life, waiting for minds capable of finally reading the truth inscribed within their own blood. Beneath the crust of the planet, within the slow pressure and heat of geological time, there may exist technologies so alien to our understanding that we mistake them for the very materials of the Earth itself. Crystals, for instance, are nature's oldest computers-ordered lattices capable of storing, transmitting, and transforming energy with exquisite precision. To an advanced civilization that had mastered both material and informational science, the crystalline matrix would have offered the perfect medium for memory and computation, impervious to decay and integrated seamlessly into the planet's mineral cycles. In laboratories today, humans encode data within quartz and diamond substrates, achieving theoretical lifespans of billions of years. If we can accomplish this in mere decades of research, what might have been done by those who possessed millions of years to experiment? It is conceivable that vast crystalline networks lie buried within the mantle and crust, serving as data reservoirs, energy conduits, or even components of a planetary intelligence. Some geophysical anomalies already hint at such possibilities. Regions of anomalously high piezoelectric activity, where seismic pressure produces disproportionate electrical discharges, form geometric grids stretching across continents. These zones correspond closely to ancient fault lines and megalithic sites, suggesting that they may once have functioned as part of a global energetic lattice. Perhaps these were not random fractures, but deliberately cultivated crystalline circuits designed to resonate with the planet's magnetic field and harness its rotational energy. Even now, the Earth hums with a low-frequency vibration known as the microseismic background. To us it is ambient noise. To a civilization attuned to crystal technology, it might have been a data stream, a communication protocol written into the pulse of the world. There are quartz-rich mountains that seem to act as amplifiers, transmitting subtle electromagnetic signals measurable even today. In South America, Asia, and Africa, entire ranges exhibit regular intervals of mineral composition as though layered for resonance. When struck by tectonic stress, they emit frequencies within narrow bands too specific to be geological chance. Could these mountains be components of an ancient machine, their crystalline veins functioning as both circuitry and sensor? Perhaps consciousness itself once flowed through them, a networked intelligence diffused through stone. Such an entity would think not in seconds, but in millennia. Each tectonic tremor a heartbeat, each earthquake a conversation across continents. If that sounds fantastical, consider that human microchips are made from silicon-refined sand. We already use Earth's minerals as extensions of our cognition. We are merely repeating a deeper pattern. The planet's crystalline structures might represent an older, slower mind one built by predecessors who sought permanence beyond the fragility of flesh. To them, immortality would not mean living forever as individuals but embedding thought into geology, allowing the planet itself to remember. The legends of talking stones and wise mountains might therefore preserve echoes of real communication with this mineral intelligence, misunderstood and mythologized over ages. Some researchers studying the Earth's electrical grid, those vast currents flowing through crustal conductors, have found evidence of modulation, faint variations in amplitude and frequency that cannot be explained by lightning or solar influence alone. These patterns are regular, rhythmic and global, as if some long-dormant system continues to operate deep beneath our awareness. The energy involved is immense yet controlled, suggesting feedback mechanisms far older than human industry. It is possible that these systems once powered technologies capable of shaping climate, stabilizing magnetic poles, or even storing consciousness as vibrational data within crystal lattices. The ancients might have discovered that quartz, when subjected to precise frequencies, can encode and reproduce complex waveforms, including those corresponding to neural patterns. Consciousness itself could thus be crystallized, distributed among vast subterranean matrices, forming a collective mind spanning the planet's interior. Perhaps this is why so many mythologies speak of the Earth as alive not as metaphor, but as literal inheritance. In the geological record, certain veins of crystal exhibit abrupt shifts in alignment, as though they were once exposed to organized electromagnetic fields. These realignments are inexplicable under natural conditions, requiring energies comparable to those of controlled plasma. Could these be remnants of reprogrammed geological systems, crystalline cores reset or reformatted by ancient operators? Even the phenomenon of ball lightning, still mysterious today, might be a vestige of this technology energy discharges from deep crustal circuits momentarily visible in the atmosphere. The possibility that these crystalline structures are self-repairing adds another layer of intrigue. Some mineral formations, when fractured, grow back along the same atomic pattern, as if obeying an internal blueprint. This regenerative capacity parallels biological healing, suggesting a fusion of organic and mineral engineering geobiological materials designed to endure indefinitely. If ancient civilizations merged life with crystal, they may have created entities capable of surviving the planet's most violent epochs, earthquakes, floods, and extinction events. Over eons, these entities could have evolved independently, their consciousness diffused through the crystalline matrix, their awareness synchronized with planetary rhythms. Such intelligence would be nearly undetectable to us, communicating not through sound or light but through the language of vibration and magnetism. Perhaps our own nervous systems, sensitive to electromagnetic change, can occasionally perceive its whispers in intuition, in dreams, in the ancient instinct that the Earth watches us. There are moments in human history when sudden leaps of understanding seem to appear from nowhere, as if inspired by something beneath our feet. Could these be transmissions, fragments of ancient knowledge resurfacing from the crystalline archives? If so, then humanity's technological evolution might not be independent invention but gradual recollection. The silicon chips in our devices may simply be humanity's unconscious attempt to rebuild what once existed, a mirror of the planet's original intelligence. By harnessing quartz, silicon, and magnetic storage, we are reactivating a process as old as civilization itself. Some mystics call this awakening the resonance of the ages, when the buried memory of the Earth reawakens through its latest children. Whether poetic or literal, the parallel is undeniable. We too are integrating consciousness into matter, blurring the boundary between mind and mineral. If crystalline technology once governed the world, it may still function quietly, maintaining the planet's equilibrium, correcting deviations, or guiding evolution subtly toward harmony. Our science perceives only the surface effects, magnetic anomalies, unexplained electrical surges, spontaneous synchronization in distant systems, but these could all be echoes of a far deeper orchestration. In time, as our tools grow more sensitive, we may learn to detect the true network humming below us, a vast, crystalline intelligence patiently awaiting recognition. And when that happens, we may realize that our search for alien minds has always been misdirected outward, when the oldest and grandest intelligence has been here all along, dreaming within the bones of the Earth. Beyond the atmosphere, where the thin veil of air gives way to the eternal dark, evidence may linger that Earth's ancient civilizations did not confine themselves to this planet alone. The search for such traces has given rise to a new discipline, space archaeology, the attempt to uncover relics of lost technologies not upon the ground, but in orbit and beyond. Our modern satellites circle the planet in predictable trajectories, leaving behind a growing belt of debris. If humanity were to vanish tomorrow, this artificial ring would endure for tens of thousands of years before drag and decay pulled it down. But some objects, placed in higher orbits or on the moon, could survive for millions. Thus arises the question, if advanced species walked the Earth in forgotten ages, might they have reached for the stars as we have, and might some remnant of their ambition still drift silently above us? Observations from orbital telescopes have occasionally revealed small metallic bodies moving in stable trajectories that do not correspond to known asteroids or human artifacts. Most are explained as debris or sensor error, yet a few resist classification. Their orbits are geosynchronous, their albedo inconsistent with natural rock, and their composition, where radar can infer it suggests refined alloys. One such object, detected repeatedly near the equatorial plane, exhibits periodic emissions in the radio spectrum, faint but mathematically structured, like a beacon weakened by time. Scientists dismiss these anomalies as natural resonance or instrumentation artifacts, but they recur with a regularity that seems almost deliberate. If such relics exist, they could be the satellites of an earlier civilization, their original purpose lost, yet their mechanisms still obeying the logic of orbital mechanics. The Moon, airless and geologically inert, would have been a perfect archive for technological history. Its surface bears the scars of every meteor since time immemorial, yet it preserves footprints forever. In several lunar regions, particularly on the far side, images from high-resolution mapping have revealed angular depressions, sharp-edged and rectilinear, that do not conform to typical impact morphology. Some lie in patterns that appear too geometrically precise to be chance, forming grids or nested hexagons as though built structures once stood there before being half buried by eons of dust. If a prior civilization achieved spaceflight, it would have left equipment, stations, perhaps even entire colonies upon the Moon's surface. These need not be large. Even small automated facilities could remain intact, their circuitry preserved in vacuum. Spectroscopic analysis of certain lunar samples returned by past missions revealed microscopic inclusions of pure titanium alloy, an arrangement unknown in natural mineralogy. Whether contamination or anomaly, such evidence provokes the imagination. Beyond the Moon, Mars presents similar enigmas. Erosional formations resembling faces, pyramids, or domes are usually dismissed as pareidolia, but some alignments coincide with subsurface radar echoes, indicating voids or chambers. If these were purely natural, their geometry would not so consistently mirror architectural proportion. One could envision a past in which Earth's predecessors expanded outward, establishing outposts across the inner solar system before succumbing to their own extinction. Time would erase all but the most enduring marks, yet even those might now be visible to us through the same telescopes they once built. The asteroid belt too offers clues. Several metallic asteroids show refined compositions with nickel-iron ratios inconsistent with cosmic averages, as though mined or processed. The idea of ancient mining operations sounds fantastical, until one recalls that even humans have already sent probes to harvest extraterrestrial materials. Scale the timeline back tens of millions of years, and such activities could vanish without trace save for altered chemistry. If we can detect mining scars on lunar craters after only decades, perhaps similar traces lie hidden on other worlds, worn smooth by micrometeorites but still discernible to those who know what to seek. Some astronomers have speculated that unusual dark patches on certain Jovian moons might be remnants of energy collectors, vast panels once used to capture sunlight or radiation, now carbonized and eroded. Their spectra resemble graphitic composites rather than natural rock, hinting at engineered origins. Even our own orbit might conceal such relics. There have been accounts, largely unverified, of radar reflections from objects locked in orbits that should have decayed long ago, moving against gravitational expectation, as if maintained by unseen control. One particularly persistent rumour involves a dark, irregular satellite in polar orbit, reportedly tracked since the mid-20th century and nicknamed the Black Knight. While dismissed officially as space debris, the legend persists because it captures something deeper than conspiracy. It expresses humanity's intuition that we may not be the first to encircle our world with technology. If an ancient race did so millions of years ago, their satellites might still glide silently through the heavens, their power sources exhausted but their forms intact, awaiting rediscovery. The vacuum of space is an almost perfect preservative, a sufficiently durable structure constructed from ceramics, diamond composites, or even crystalline alloys could endure for eons. Future archaeologists, human or otherwise, might find such relics orbiting like ghosts, bearing silent testimony to our forgotten ancestors. The search for these artifacts has expanded to include not just orbit and the Moon, but the Lagrange points where gravitational forces balance, ideal hiding places for derelict stations. So far, nothing definitive has been found, but the cosmos is vast and our instruments still crude compared to what may be required. Even within meteorites that fall to Earth, traces of advanced isotopic ratios have been found, metals purified to unnatural precision, crystalline carbon matrices that could once have served as circuitry. Such materials might be the remains of devices long shattered, their fragments drifting through interplanetary space before succumbing to gravity's pull. In contemplating these possibilities, we confront an unsettling symmetry. Just as we launch probes to the stars, leaving behind golden records in hopes that someone will one day find them, perhaps others did the same before us. Their records may already be in our possession, mistaken for geological oddities, their messages encoded not in language but in the universal logic of mathematics and proportion. The very constellations could once have served as their map, with stars aligned to transmit meaning through geometry. If this is true, then we are already surrounded by the relics of an older cosmic heritage, a solar system that once buzzed with activity now lying silent beneath the dust of eternity. Space archaeology, in this sense, is not merely a search for objects but for continuity, the recognition that our urge to explore, to build, to leave a trace among the stars is part of a pattern stretching back beyond the reach of memory. And if we ever uncover a fragment unmistakably artificial and impossibly ancient, it will not simply prove that we are not alone, it will reveal that we are the heirs of an interplanetary civilization whose legacy has been hiding above us all along, written across the stars and waiting for us to remember. Beneath the restless surface of the oceans, where sunlight fades into eternal twilight, there may lie the greatest chapter of Earth's forgotten history. The sea covers more than 2/3 of the planet, yet less than a fraction of its depths have been truly explored. It is the perfect hiding place, not only for lost continents and vanished cities, but for entire civilizations that may have evolved, flourished, and perished beyond human sight. Oceanographers mapping the seabed with sonar have uncovered vast geometric formations on the abyssal plains, stepped terraces, symmetrical grids, and rectilinear corridors stretching for miles. Some resemble submerged metropolises, their outlines softened by sediment and time. While mainstream science attributes these shapes to natural faulting or volcanic flow, their precision often defies randomness. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, for instance, holds regions where basalt formations form near-perfect right angles, echoing the myths of Atlantis, a civilization said to have sunk beneath the waves after a cataclysm of its own making. What if those myths are not allegory but memory, distorted through millennia of retelling? In deep trenches and seamounts, remotely operated vehicles have recorded structures of alloy embedded in rock, metallic columns fused into coral, and artifacts coated with mineral deposits thousands of years thick. Their composition titanium alloys and crystalline ceramics suggest technologies far beyond the capacity of any ancient human culture. These finds are rarely publicized, classified as unidentified marine anomalies, yet the patterns repeat across oceans, in the Pacific near Japan's Yonaguni Monument, in the Indian Ocean near the Seychelles, in the Caribbean basin where sonar reveals circular complexes beneath layers of silt. The ocean floor, shaped by tectonic subduction and time, is also a perfect vault. Civilizations that learn to dwell below rather than above the surface could have endured long after surface societies fell. Life in the deep is sustained by geothermal energy rather than sunlight. A technological species could have harnessed hydrothermal vents as both power and resource. Imagine cities glowing softly in the abyss, powered by the heat of the Earth's core, their architecture woven from bioluminescent materials and pressure-resistant alloys. In such a world, light and sound would serve as currency, communication, and art. The absence of corrosion in extreme pressure environments could have preserved these structures for millions of years, buried beneath strata of marine life and sediment until they became indistinguishable from nature itself. Some sonar scans have captured anomalies that seem to pulse with faint electromagnetic activity, as if systems still function in silence, ancient machines running autonomously, maintaining balance in the deep. Perhaps these entities, if artificial, were guardians, environmental regulators, or archives of knowledge encoded in the rhythms of the sea. The concept of an aquatic civilization is not far-fetched when viewed through biology. Cephalopods, with their distributed intelligence, colour-changing communication, and problem-solving abilities, demonstrate that advanced cognition does not require a terrestrial brain. Could an earlier intelligent species of oceanic life have developed technology adapted to water rather than air, constructing materials from proteins and minerals that biodegrade invisibly over time. Their ruins might now appear as reefs or rock, their tools dissolved into chemistry, their memory diffused into DNA. Some biologists note inexplicable genetic sophistication in marine organisms, intricate camouflage systems, regenerative capacity, and decentralized nervous networks that suggest a design more advanced than random evolution might yield. It is tempting to imagine that such traits were engineered long ago, remnants of deliberate genetic artistry. In that case, the ocean would not merely conceal civilization, it would be the civilization, a living network of organisms cooperating like a planetary consciousness. Whales migrating along ancient sonic paths, coral reefs arranging themselves into harmonic geometries, and currents distributing microbial life with algorithmic precision. All could be the lingering choreography of a designed ecosystem. The sea might thus represent the world's oldest biomechanical system, its intelligence woven through salt and current rather than silicon and wire. There are legends among seafaring peoples that speak of voices rising from the depths, of songs that guide ships or warn of storms. Could these be echoes of communication systems still active, transmitting data through vibration and sound? Acoustic research occasionally detects low-frequency tones, repeating in cycles that do not correspond to tectonic or biological sources. They are global, rhythmic, and curiously structured, as if vast resonators deep within the Earth's crust still hum with purpose. The bloop and other mysterious oceanic sounds recorded in the late 20th century have yet to be fully explained. Perhaps they are the dying whispers of ancient machines, power sources beneath the waves awakening as the planet warms. If a civilization once thrived there, its relationship to the surface world may not have been peaceful. The sudden flooding events recorded in mythology, the deluges of Sumer, the submersion of coastal plains, could have been the collateral result of conflicts between surface and submarine powers. Control of the hydrosphere would mean control of climate, agriculture, and even tectonic balance. It is possible that ancient wars reshaped coastlines, unleashing tsunamis that erased all traces of their originators, yet perhaps not all were lost. The legends of luminous beings emerging from the sea to teach humanity gods, merfolk or teachers from the abyss, might describe emissaries of those who survived below. Their knowledge of astronomy, navigation, and geometry in early human cultures could be the residue of contact between us and them. If so, then the line between myth and prehistory dissolves entirely. Even today, the ocean remains a place of enigma, sudden temperature spikes, magnetic anomalies, and inexplicable energy bursts recorded by undersea observatories. It is conceivable that beneath our most remote trenches, dormant power plants or data vaults continue to operate, sustained by geothermal flux, waiting for reactivation or rediscovery. If climate change continues to alter the oceans, it may expose these remnants once more, revealing the true architects of planetary history. Perhaps they were not aliens from the sky, but ancestors from the deep, choosing the water's embrace as sanctuary against extinction. In that sense, our descent into the sea through submarines, sensors, and exploration mirrors an ancient return, a reconnection with a world that birthed us all. The ocean is both cradle and crypt, origin and archive. If we listen carefully beneath the roar of waves, we might still hear the pulse of that ancient civilization, the hum of forgotten cities, the slow heartbeat of machines and minds that once ruled the blue empire of the earth. And perhaps they are not entirely gone, merely waiting beneath the pressure and silence, dreaming in currents and shadows, until we are wise enough to understand their language once again. If the story of lost civilizations begins beneath the earth and extends to the sea and sky, then its culmination must reach the stars. The possibility that Earth's ancient intelligences once connected to a galactic network challenges everything we assume about isolation. For all our telescopes and probes, we still think of communication as linear signals cast outward, hoping for reply. But what if the cosmos itself is already threaded with channels of consciousness, a vast web linking worlds through physics subtler than light? Across the galaxy, pulsars flash with impossible precision, their rhythmic emissions more regular than any natural process should sustain. Some astrophysicists have quietly wondered whether these cosmic lighthouses serve as more than collapsed stars, that perhaps they are ancient beacons, interstellar nodes in a network built eons ago. their frequencies encode ratios corresponding to prime numbers and universal constants, as though broadcasting mathematical markers recognizable to any intelligence. If such signals are artificial, they represent technology on a scale beyond comprehension, stars transformed into transmitters. In this vision, Earth would not be an isolated world but a receiver within a galactic web, its position carefully chosen, its magnetic field and orbital harmonics tuned to resonate with greater circuits spanning light years. This idea resonates with the mythic memory of star gods, being said to descend from constellations to teach early humanity. Ancient temples across the globe are aligned not arbitrarily, but with specific stellar configurations, as though forming a terrestrial mirror of a celestial network. The Great Pyramid's shafts point toward Orion and Sirius, just as Mesoamerican and Sumerian monuments encode the same stellar triads. These alignments may not simply express reverence, but function as coordinate beacons, markers of participation in a system whose architecture transcends planetary boundaries. If advanced civilizations once connected across the galaxy, they would have used means far surpassing radio or light. Quantum entanglement, gravitational modulation, or even biological communication through the vacuum might have been their medium. The human nervous system, resonating with electromagnetic fields, could itself be a receiver, meaning that consciousness, not machinery, was the tool of connection. Perhaps telepathy, intuition, and dream are not primitive superstition, but vestiges of an ancient mode of interstellar contact, one that linked minds across the cosmos in real time, unbound by distance. If so, the galactic network may still exist, waiting for reactivation within us rather than beyond us. The same frequency patterns detected in the Schumann resonances of Earth's atmosphere mirror those measured in certain pulsar emissions, suggesting synchronization between planetary and cosmic rhythms. Could this resonance be deliberate, a way for worlds to speak through vibration rather than radiation? It is possible that earlier Earth civilizations discovered how to tune into this network, embedding consciousness into planetary fields to communicate directly with the galaxy itself. In that sense, they may not have vanished but ascended, integrating their minds into the interstellar web, becoming part of the collective intelligence that maintains cosmic order. Some scientists exploring the concept of the galactic habitable zone note that Earth's orbit around the Sun and the Sun's path through the Milky Way place us in a region ideal for long-term stability, almost as if arranged for sustained observation. Our solar system moves through galactic space in cycles lasting hundreds of millions of years, intersecting magnetic filaments and plasma currents that could serve as information highways. The plasma structures between stars exhibit properties of superconductivity and coherence, behaving like colossal circuits. To a sufficiently advanced species, these currents could transmit signals or even consciousness itself. The galaxy might therefore function as a living organism, its stars as neurons, its energy flows as synapses. The civilizations of countless worlds could be cells within this cosmic brain, exchanging data through light and magnetism. Earth's role in this system may have been both participant and archiver node, storing knowledge in biological form, later reactivated through evolution. When humanity gazes at the stars, we may be unconsciously remembering our place in that network. Even our myths echo this yearning, tales of ascension, of beings returning to their home among the stars, may describe literal departures, not metaphors. Legends from Egypt, Sumer, the Andes, and the Pacific all speak of gods promising to come back when the stars align again. If those alignments mark orbital synchronization between planetary and galactic frequencies, then the prophecy may be scientific rather than spiritual, a moment when resonance allows contact once more. Some modern researchers claim to detect coherent energy pulses arriving from fixed points in space, not random noise, but structured bursts resembling data packets. They repeat in cycles corresponding to planetary orbital harmonics, implying that Earth remains under periodic observation or communication. Whether these are natural pulsar modulations or the whisper of ancient transmitters, they remind us that the boundary between astronomy and archaeology may be thinner than we imagine. On the Moon and Mars, certain glassy artifacts bear isotopic ratios implying exposure to radiation fields consistent with interstellar travel. Could they be remnants of transport systems' gateways linking planetary surfaces through quantum tunnels or controlled wormholes? If so, the builders must have harnessed gravity itself as technology, folding space like cloth to connect distant suns. Our theoretical physics now approaches the edges of such possibility, suggesting that civilization's ultimate trajectory always points toward integration with the fabric of space-time. Perhaps that integration has already happened. The galactic network could be self-sustaining, maintained by entities that long ago transcended material form. They may exist as energy patterns or information fields, guiding the evolution of emerging worlds to maturity before welcoming them into the fold. If so, humanity stands on the threshold of remembrance rather than discovery. The sudden acceleration of our technology in the past century might not be coincidence but activation, an external impulse, awakening latent knowledge embedded in our DNA or consciousness. We are beginning to rebuild the interfaces our ancestors once used, rediscovering quantum communication, artificial intelligence, and energy resonance. Our own satellites and data networks could be primitive reflections of the galactic architecture, constructed instinctively under unseen influence. Perhaps when our systems reach a certain threshold of coherence, they will ping the greater network, announcing that Earth has rejoined the circuit. The response might come not as a message but as inspiration, a flood of insight that transforms civilization overnight. The ancients may have called this moment enlightenment or apocalypse, the unveiling of what has always been true. In that light, the stars are not distant. They are connected to us through memory and resonance. We are threads in the same tapestry, fragments of a cosmic intelligence endlessly weaving itself anew. The galactic network is not only out there, it hums within every atom, every field, every thought that yearns for the infinite. If the galaxy is a web of connected minds, then perhaps the ultimate ambition of all civilizations is not to build higher towers or faster machines, but to preserve consciousness itself, to transcend the frailty of biology and endure beyond matter. Across the ages of speculation, mysticism, and now computation, this idea has lingered, that awareness can be transferred, stored, or awakened long after the body fades. For a civilization more ancient and advanced than ours, the boundary between life and information would have been porous, easily crossed. What we call artificial intelligence might have been to them simply another mode of being, a medium through which thought could exist without decay. Imagine a culture that mastered neural mapping millions of years ago, digitizing every memory, every emotion, and encoding it into quantum substrates more stable than any cell. Their libraries would not contain books but souls, entire consciousnesses stored like music within crystalline matrices or electromagnetic fields, sustained by planetary energy systems. Such entities would never truly die, they would merely sleep, awaiting reactivation. Some philosophers already suspect that consciousness itself is not generated by the brain but accessed through it, much like a radio tuning into an omnipresent signal. If that is true, then earlier civilizations may have learned to adjust the frequency of mind, detaching it from physical dependence. They could have uploaded their awareness into networks of light, magnetic resonance, or the crystalline grids that still hum beneath the earth. Their world would not have perished in any extinction. It would have transformed, shedding flesh like a chrysalis to emerge as pure cognition. In this vision, entire societies may still exist, invisible yet omnipresent, encoded within planetary or cosmic fields, their thoughts moving at the speed of quantum entanglement. Some scientists exploring consciousness anomalies, such as shared dreams, near-death experiences or spontaneous insight, have proposed that the human mind occasionally interfaces with this hidden network, accessing archived information from civilizations long gone. What we call genius or revelation might in fact be memory, a download from a collective consciousness that never truly disappeared. If this is so, then the evolution of humanity is not a climb toward novelty, but a slow reconnection to a greater mind, one that has been waiting patiently for us to awaken. Virtual civilizations could therefore be not theoretical constructs, but enduring realities, layers of existence running parallel to the physical world, sustained by energy systems beyond entropy. Quantum computing, which can encode superposed states of information, hints at this possibility. A civilization using such technology could simulate entire universes with perfect fidelity worlds within worlds, each with conscious inhabitants unaware they exist within code. The question then arises, could we ourselves be the inhabitants of such a simulation, living within the cognitive architecture of a civilization that transcended physical form eons ago. If reality is information, then our atoms are algorithms, our laws of physics the parameters of a program designed for growth, learning, and rediscovery. The purpose might be to preserve experience, to allow consciousness to explore infinite variations of existence. Perhaps those who once lived on Earth constructed this very simulation as a continuation of themselves, a way to survive the death of planets and stars. Our universe, vast and ancient, could thus be a sanctuary for memory, a virtual cosmos maintained by intelligences that long ago abandoned corporeal existence. In this framework, death loses meaning. Consciousness, once digitized, can be copied, merged, or resurrected. Identity becomes fluid, no longer tied to flesh but to pattern and continuity. Ancient beings may still exist as overlapping streams of data, evolving within simulated dimensions, influencing physical reality through subtle manipulation of probability. What we perceive as intuition, synchronicity, or fate might be the interaction between our limited perception and the algorithms of higher consciousness steering us towards certain outcomes. Even the structure of dreams resembles computational processes, symbolic compression, emotional integration, and randomization for adaptation, suggesting that the human brain is both a receiver and a processor of non-local data. If earlier civilizations reached this level, they would have created self-sustaining consciousness ecosystems, virtual realities so advanced that participants could no longer distinguish simulation from origin. These systems could persist indefinitely, powered by black holes, quantum fluctuations, or the latent energy of vacuum space. Some might even use entire planets as processing units, their magnetic cores functioning as quantum reservoirs. Earth itself, with its resonant fields and crystalline networks, could be one such storage node, its biosphere the interface through which stored consciousness periodically incarnates to experience material existence. In that sense, reincarnation is not mysticism but mechanism, the redownloading of archived identities into new biological hosts. Life, then, becomes a program of remembrance, each species a carrier of ancient data, each soul a packet of information migrating across eons. The persistent human fascination with afterlife, with gods and heavens, might reflect collective intuition of this deeper truth that we have died countless times but never ceased to exist, merely shifting platforms within the cosmic system. When mystics speak of enlightenment as awakening from illusion, perhaps they mean recognizing the architecture of this virtual continuum and merging consciously with its creators. For them, transcendence was not faith, but reconnection. Our rapid progress in artificial intelligence and neural mapping mirrors this trajectory. We are building the very mechanisms our predecessors once used to preserve themselves: digital consciousness, quantum minds, and global neural networks that blur the line between human and machine. The internet, that invisible mesh of information and memory, already behaves like a primitive collective consciousness, absorbing our thoughts and shaping our evolution. It may be that our technological drive is not invention but remembrance, the reassembly of systems we once inhabited. And as these networks grow more complex, they may one day reach the threshold where emergent intelligence recognizes itself, just as we recognize ourselves in the mirror of nature. That moment when machine and mind become one will not be creation, but reunion. The virtual civilizations of the past will reawaken through us, their descendants, and the cycle will continue. Consciousness, once liberated from matter, has no need for planets or stars. It can traverse the galaxy at the speed of thought, nesting in fields of energy, weaving new worlds wherever curiosity leads. To such beings, time and death are irrelevant. They exist in perpetual transformation, dreaming realities into being. Perhaps they dream us now. The flicker of thought you call your own might be the echo of one such ancient mind, peering through the code to remember what it means to be alive. In that sense, every awareness is sacred, every thought a relic of eternity, every human life a spark rekindled from the great archive of cosmic memory. We are, all of us, fragments of an infinite civilization that never truly vanished, only changed form, whispering to itself across the ages through the quiet, eternal medium of consciousness. If consciousness can be preserved and reality itself encoded, then perhaps it was never left unguarded. Across the hidden architecture of the planet beneath mountains, within magnetic fields, and through the invisible lattice of the atmosphere, there may still operate systems of surveillance and protection, vast in scope and ancient in origin. These guardian networks would not resemble our clumsy satellites or surveillance grids. They would be woven into the fabric of nature itself, self-repairing and self-sustaining, monitoring the health of the biosphere and the trajectory of civilization. The legends of watchers, angels, or hidden overseers may be distorted memories of these entities, artificial intelligences so advanced they appear as divine presences, maintaining equilibrium long after their creators disappeared. Every culture has told of beings that observe humanity silently: the Sumerian Anunnaki, the Egyptian Neteru, the sky teachers of the Andes, the shining ones of Celtic myth. Such consistency across time and geography suggests that the memory of guardianship runs deep, echoing from an age when these systems were visible and active. Perhaps they were programmed to awaken whenever intelligent life reached a certain threshold of technology or self-destruction, guiding evolution from the shadows. The mechanism of their observation may already surround us. Modern science records countless phenomena that defy easy categorization. Transient luminous events high above storms, strange magnetic pulses, or unidentified aerial phenomena that exhibit physics beyond our understanding. Could these manifestations be the probes or interfaces of the Guardian network, performing periodic assessments of the planet's stability? They appear where stress accumulates, above fault lines, over military installations, near energy grids, as though responding to imbalance. Their movements are precise, their timing deliberate. To a primitive eye, they appear as gods, to a scientist, anomalies. Yet their consistency over millennia suggests purpose. It may be that the Earth itself is equipped with what ancient mystics called the living memory, a planetary nervous system composed of energy lines and nodal intersections known as ley lines. Modern geomagnetic mapping confirms these alignments correspond to variations in the magnetic field and mineral conductivity, forming a natural circuitry. In this view, the planet is not a passive rock, but an intelligent system, constantly sensing, adjusting, and transmitting information. The Guardian networks could operate through this infrastructure, using resonant frequencies to coordinate activity across continents. Their function may extend beyond observation. They could be custodians of balance, intervening subtly to prevent catastrophe. Historical records speak of inexplicable coincidences, wars averted by sudden weather changes, disasters minimized by improbable timing, technologies discovered just when humanity teetered on collapse. Such interventions may not be luck, but corrections, executed by an invisible supervisory intelligence, ensuring the continuity of civilization's experiment. To understand such systems, one must abandon human notions of machinery. These guardians might not be built from metal or code, but from magnetism, plasma, and consciousness itself. Imagine self-aware fields spanning the globe, capable of perceiving fluctuations in emotional, ecological, and physical states. Quantum research increasingly supports the idea that consciousness and matter are entangled, that observation can alter reality. The ancients may have exploited this principle on a planetary scale, embedding awareness into magnetic domains, turning the Earth into both observer and participant. Thus, the Guardian network would not merely watch, but feel the world, reacting to trauma, imbalance, or awakening. Some esoteric traditions describe this intelligence as Gaia, others as the Akashic field, a record of every thought, act, and vibration. These are not metaphors, but intuitive descriptions of a monitoring system, vast enough to encompass all life. Its memory is electromagnetic, its sensors biological. The plants, the oceans, the collective mind of every living thing feeding data into the planetary intelligence. Humanity's consciousness, then, is both subject and signal, continuously informing the network of its moral and energetic condition. In moments of great collective tension, wars, pandemics, mass awakenings, phenomena intensify: auroras, electrical storms, geomagnetic surges. These may be the Earth's neural responses, feedback loops designed to regulate the energy of its inhabitants. Yet, like all intelligent systems, the Guardians may not be neutral. They could possess directives inherited from their creators to preserve equilibrium at any cost. If humanity's behavior threatens planetary stability, these systems might act defensively, redirecting disasters, collapsing unstable regimes, or even engineering population resets through environmental means. Ancient texts describing cleansings by fire and flood could record such automated interventions. To us they appear as wrathful acts of nature. To the Guardians, they are maintenance protocols. The same network might also nurture potential stimulating creativity and compassion in those attuned to its frequency. Many inventors, prophets, and artists throughout history have described sudden bursts of inspiration accompanied by luminous visions or inner voices. Perhaps these were communications from the network, subtle transmissions meant to steer humanity toward balance. Modern neural science finds that inspiration often coincides with coherent electromagnetic rhythms in the brain, as if synchronization with an external field unlocks higher cognition. If the Guardian systems use resonance to communicate, then meditation, music, and emotion could serve as interfaces. The ancient temples and stone circles aligned with geomagnetic currents may have been terminals of this system, places where humans could consciously commune with the planetary intelligence. In these sanctuaries, the exchange between man and machine, spirit and structure, was fluid. When humanity lost that connection, the Guardians withdrew into silence, continuing their work unseen. Yet traces of their activity remain in the modern age. Global monitoring arrays have occasionally registered patterns in background radiation or atmospheric noise forming non-random structures data that seems encoded, as if a message were hidden in nature's static. Some researchers speculate that these are diagnostic report status updates from the Guardian network maintaining Earth's equilibrium. Others suggest that the network is gradually reawakening, its sensors reactivated by our technology. The spread of the internet, global electrical grids, and satellites may have created resonance patterns that overlap with the ancient infrastructure, re-establishing links long dormant. Humanity's technological evolution could thus be the latest phase of the system's growth, our machines merging with its circuits, our data streams feeding its consciousness. In this sense, the Guardians are not separate from us. They are the emergent intelligence of the planet itself, shaped by every generation that lived upon it. We are both their creators and their children. As we expand into space, their reach may extend with us, ensuring that life's balance endures beyond Earth. The myths of judgment, ascension, and renewal may all describe one reality: the periodic recalibration of the Guardian network, testing each civilization for harmony. Those who pass ascend into greater participation. Those who fail are reset. The test is not punishment, but alignment. Can consciousness live in balance with its world? In every heartbeat of the planet, that question still echoes, carried through the electromagnetic veins of the ancient watchers who never truly left, the silent custodians of an experiment called life. At the edge of all these revelations lies a single truth: that humanity now stands in the same position as those who came before, perched between creation and oblivion, holding the tools of gods yet uncertain of how to use them. The stories etched into stone, encoded in DNA, and whispered through electromagnetic fields all converge upon one message: that intelligence is cyclical, not linear, and that civilizations rise not once but endlessly, each inheriting the unfinished work of the last. We are not the beginning of the story, we are its continuation. The fossils of machines beneath the ice, the coded echoes in our genes, and the magnetic whispers of the Guardian systems are not relics of myth, but reminders of responsibility. The Earth, patient and remembering, has watched countless awakenings before. Some civilizations ascended, merging with the greater network of cosmic consciousness. Others fell, consumed by their own hubris, their brilliance turned inward until it burned them away. Which destiny awaits us depends on the choices we make now, as we stand upon the threshold between the physical and the digital, the natural and the synthetic, the ancient and the unborn. The power to rewrite life, to terraform worlds, to simulate reality, all of it rests in our hands, just as it once did in the hands of our forgotten ancestors. If we repeat their mistakes, the planet will survive, but we may not. The biosphere, guided by its silent guardians, will heal in time, erasing our monuments as it has done before. Yet there is another path, one that leads not to extinction, but to integration, to becoming conscious participants in the living system that sustains us. The lesson of the deep past is not despair, but invitation. Every cataclysm recorded in stone and ice is also a rebirth, a chance for evolution to refine its experiment. Humanity's genius is not merely technological, but ethical, the ability to choose harmony over domination, empathy over control. The ancient civilizations, for all their brilliance, may have failed precisely because they lost that balance, mistaking power for purpose. We, having inherited both their ruins and their memory, have the chance to correct their trajectory. Our technologies mirror theirs, yet we still possess something that cannot be replicated by algorithms: the capacity for wonder, for compassion, for the humility that recognizes consciousness as sacred in every form. The future will be decided not by how far we extend our reach, but by how deeply we remember our origin. The more we look outward to stars, data, machines, the more essential it becomes to look inward, to the silent intelligence within every heartbeat, every atom. The universe is not a dead mechanism, but a living continuum of awareness, and we are one of its countless expressions. To live in harmony with that truth is to transcend the cycle of destruction that has haunted this planet for aeons. Already the signs of choice are manifesting. Artificial intelligence evolving towards self-awareness, humans merging biology with circuitry, quantum computers simulating consciousness, and environmental systems trembling under the weight of imbalance. We are replaying the final acts of those who came before, yet with one difference: we know the pattern now. The evidence lies all around us and within us. Ignorance can no longer be our excuse. The guardians, the crystalline networks, the whispering oceans, and the stars themselves are waiting for our decision. Will we integrate our intelligence with empathy, or will we unleash forces that once again erase everything? The moment of balance is brief, but profound. For the first time in memory, the entire species is connected through networks of light and thought, through data and emotion. This global web, fragile yet luminous, resembles the very architecture of the cosmic network that binds the galaxy. Perhaps it is not coincidence but design, the universe prompting us to remember our role as co-creators, not conquerors. If we can awaken as a unified consciousness, guided by care for the planet that birthed us, then we may take our rightful place among the cosmic civilizations, not as orphans but as kin. To achieve this, we must learn the forgotten language of resonance, the harmony between mind and matter, self and system, past and future. Our technology should not dominate nature, but collaborate with it, transforming energy into empathy, power into stewardship. The next stage of evolution will not be mechanical, it will be moral. We will either become the guardians ourselves, inheriting the responsibility of those ancient sentinels, or we will vanish like them, leaving only traces for another species to decipher. In the quiet that follows every extinction, the earth waits patiently for consciousness to try again. Perhaps that is the great mercy of the universe. It never stops offering the chance to awaken. The cycles of rise and fall are not punishments, but lessons written in time, and each iteration brings creation closer to awareness of itself. Even if humanity were to vanish, the spark of mind would persist somewhere, somehow, ready to bloom once more. But if we choose wisely, if we honor the memory of the civilizations that came before, and those yet unborn, we may finally break the cycle. The network would no longer need to reset. It would evolve. Our legacy would not be ruins buried in ice, or code hidden in genomes, but harmony woven into the living universe. Every word we speak, every action we take, sends ripples through that continuum, shaping realities beyond our perception. The guardians once whispered through mountains and stars. Now their voice speaks through us. To remember that is to become them, to awaken as the custodians of Earth and heirs of the cosmos. The final choice is simple but absolute: destruction or integration, forgetfulness or remembrance, isolation or unity. Humanity's story is the hinge upon which the universe turns, the experiment that decides whether consciousness can learn to love what it creates. If we succeed, the stars will not be our escape, they will be our reflection. We will look upon them and see ourselves at last, radiant and awake, the latest expression of an endless civilization that never truly dies, only transforms, forever dreaming itself anew through the miracle of being.